Welcome to this Monday edition of Weather to Watch. We are more than halfway through January, and we are seeing a significant shift to the winter weather pattern featuring snow and ice in the nation's midsection and through the east. We'll take a closer look at it coming up. Thanks for watching. I'm meteorologist Ted Keller. We'll start by looking at the lower 48, the visible satellite loop. It shows some pretty harmless clouds moving through the central part of the country. We have a lot of lake effect snows. I'll show you those here in a minute. Basically, this entire area here is just one big cold pool of air, and we can take a look at the 500 millibar flow laid on top of that, and you can figure out why. We are basically United States, lower 48, North America, really, in what is called a long wave trough. So this thing is huge. Now, when the lines dip down toward the south like this in the northern hemisphere, that's a trough aloft, and basically long wave just means that the distance between the trough right here and the ridge, which isn't even on this map, it's so big, it defines how large this is. So long waves are, we're talking about thousands of miles. Shorter waves, on the other hand, are like these little things right here, and there's probably a real subtle one right here. The X's try to mark where the air is spinning, vorticity. But needless to say, when you see a pattern like this is a surefire in the winter that everything here is cold. And we'll take a look at the surface map. At least this is the model depiction of it at 6 p.m. CST, and high pressure center right over Oklahoma. The coldest area, that's the colors on the map, is up in parts of Minnesota and Wisconsin, and that's flowing over the lakes, causing that lake effect snow. The front that led the Arctic charge here is cutting at this hour through Atlanta and is ending up in almost southern Texas, the way it looks now. So this entire part of the country, while there would be some temperature fluctuations this week especially, is just basically looking to switch to winter mode. Now, this part of the country already did. The difference over the next, let's say, 10 to 14 days is that more often than not, we're going to see cold air that will get all the way down to Florida, actually. In this particular case. If you look at the radar loop, you can see really it's the only meaningful precipitation in the entire lower 48, and the banding of the lake effect snows is always obvious when you see it. So it just takes this long from going from Thunder Bay, here's Lake Superior, upper left-hand corner, I'm circling Thunder Bay, so the cold air flows over that, and this distance right here is how long it takes for that cold air to pick up sufficient warmth and moisture from the lake itself and finally form clouds and finally form the snow showers. And depending on the time of year, there could be rain showers too, but snow showers always make the news. These just line up in different areas. Like south of Buffalo is getting hammered at this hour. I'm recording this about 6 o'clock CST. But the heavier snow is north of Buffalo. If you look at the last 24 hours. So it moves around quite a bit, and it leads to some counties getting buried in snow and others just seeing a few flurries. I want to show you this pattern change, and you can begin to see what I mean, and also begin to see why the pattern for snow and maybe even ice has shifted. So here's the EPS mean 500 millibar flow for this entire week starting today. So this again is a big long wave trough that on average is just going to be over the central and eastern U.S. for this entire period. Now, having said that, we do have an additional effect that occurs right here, is that you do get compressional warming down the Rockies, and that can actually warm the air right here, whereas the overall pattern supports cold fronts. So what'll happen is there'll be some temperature ups and downs, but the overall pattern for the rest of January will be for this area to be pretty chilly. If we look at the temperature anomaly, again, beginning today and going through Sunday, really, really below normal in Minnesota and Wisconsin, and enough below normal to notice in this area here, the lighter shade of blue. And if we go beyond this week into the last week of January, this becomes even more pronounced the way it looks now. Let's take a look at the 500 millibar loop, and this is just, I just let the EPS go. I just grabbed a GIF of this basically for the next 6 days. And you can see how this trough just keeps establishing itself. Now, this is the troublemaker right here. This looks like a benign little weather feature that comes out of California here. We'll watch the loop start again, and here it comes. And this little feature right here often is hard to model correctly. And already today, I see signs that this is being modeled a little bit differently, with the storm track a little bit more to the south than maybe over the weekend. But there's still some time for this to change, by the way. But overall, this is a pretty stormy pattern, especially for this area right here. We'll first look at temperature trends, and then we'll take a look at, I was going to say just snow, but let's just call it winter setting in across the south. But let's look at those temperatures first. So if it looks cool with the colors, it's below normal. So we have highs of only 17 around Pittsburgh and only around about 20 degrees, 22 degrees in New York City. And Charlotte only 44. Meanwhile, the warm air, like I said, downslope flow off the Rockies helps to compress and warm this air. So you're getting into the 50s and 40s in the wake of this latest cold air snap. And this is the map valid for Tuesday. And then if we go to Thursday, it looks pretty quiet here, but you can start to see some signs that cold air is beginning to gather force again by Thursday already, and by Friday it will have moved. This is not cold enough for winter precipitation quite yet, but it's the day before it's forecast to break out. So watch what happens on Saturday. Wow. The entire deep freeze circuit is in full swing. So the high in my town here in Springfield will be 19 on Wednesday. Now, will Florida get in on this? Not by Saturday, but generally speaking, at least half, if not to 2/3 of Florida will get pretty cold, at least temporarily, as we get later into January. So if we look at the Weather Service's confidence level in below and above normal temperatures, you hardly ever see it for below at 90%, but that's what this is right here in the Ohio Valley, the eastern seaboard, the northeast. So that's a very high confidence. This area is going to be really cold. This starts the Sunday after, or maybe still during, the ice and snow here that I'll show you in a minute, and then goes through Thursday of the following week. And if you go longer, down to the 27th through actually the 2nd, Groundhog Day, again, a high-risk area. Basically, I hardly ever see this, below normal temperatures from Illinois over to Pittsburgh, from Michigan down to Nashville. And, of course, the eastern one half of the U.S. at least is trending in that direction. So it gets set to get cold. Notice that the moderate risk line, again, cuts Florida in half. So last week down there will get pretty cold. It'll probably be temporary and bounce back pretty quick, but just for information purposes, if you're traveling there, it's going to be a little cool at first. Let's take a look at the snow and the winter precipitation. The most organized snow reports, except for the just isolated lake effect snow bands, have been in the Northeast over the last 24 hours. So if you're looking at the yellow dots here, that's getting into the, I believe that's the 5 to 6 inch range. Actually, that's the 6 to 8 inch range right there. So right around Boston, central and eastern Massachusetts. Up the coastal areas, the blue dots, 4 inches or less. We also had some pretty good snows north of Denver here. With a couple of some dots, 8-inch snow totals closer to the mountains, but most of this has been 1 to 2 inch totals in that area. And there was even a little burst of snow there from Dodge City back over to southwest Kansas in that area, a couple of inches of snow there. Now, the Weather Service is saying over the next 48 hours, or no, make that 72 hours, lake effect snows still going in these areas here, these little, just like little pimples, aren't they? And you can just tell it's lake effect snow. But this is actually a little Alberta clipper that's laying down this band here. And then another little band of snow right in that area I just showed you. So the primary advisories are still winter storm warnings in the pinkish color, winter weather advisories in the purplish color. The warning implies greater snow and a higher risk. Winter weather advisory, less snow, lower snow rates, snowfall rates, and lower amounts in general. Now, let's get to what you've been hearing about and the graphic I led with. Let's take a look at, this is first the global forecast system, the ensemble version of it, laying down snow. This is a simple 10-to-1 ratio forecast. This goes from Friday through Sunday. And so we see a snow band that goes from the panhandle of Oklahoma, Texas, reaches what appears to be on this Monday the maximum snow totals, extreme southwest Missouri, northeast Oklahoma, northern parts of Arkansas, and then this kicks in by Sunday as it moves toward the east coast, so the purple color is 6 inches or more. So this really, this is one look at it. Let's take another perspective. Let's look at the European version of this same model. So the reason why I would lead with a graphic like that is if I see both of these long-range models and I'm looking at the ensemble versions, which are mellower, and they're both agreeing, yeah, I'm thinking something's going to happen. So this is a pretty good snow here, almost in the same area as the global forecast system. Over the weekend, I was watching this, and the snow bands were actually a little bit further to the north, and that still could happen. But for the time being, they seem to be sinking south. And this is a departure from what's happened this winter so far. So look at that map, and then look at what the snow that has fallen so far this season. And, way back in November, there was about 4 storms in a row that laid down a lot of snow in this area here. The lake effect snows can almost be discounted because they're so common. And finally, some snows have kicked in Colorado after being a little bit of a snow drought. But this is what the Weather Service is outlining in terms of winter hazards. So this goes from the 23rd to the 24th to the left of these two darker lines here, and then the 24th and 25th to the right of these two darker blue and pink lines. So basically that's the storm just shifting eastward with time. So this is something to be watching for if you're traveling in this area. Probably the major hubs that would be affected by this airline-wise would be Dallas and maybe Atlanta, and we'll see. Not Chicago. Maybe Memphis might be in a little bit of a mess there through this period. And I did want to show you, now the EPS is the only model that actually spits out a freezing rain solution. This is actually Saturday and Sunday, not so much Friday. But there's a bullseye right here along the Louisiana-Arkansas border of freezing precipitation. This, if it holds true, would be ice storm warning stuff we're talking about here. But again, we're 5 to 6 days out on this. I just want to show it to you. There has been consistency with this, so something is going to happen. If we zoom in on this, you see that same area, the Arkansas-Louisiana border, 1 inch possibly of freezing rain would be a pretty bad situation. Again, is that a forecast necessarily? No, but it has been consistently showing freezing rain in this area, and I'd say even half of that would be bad news. And yeah, northern Georgia over into Carolinas, picking this up on Sunday, freezing rain as well. So we'll keep a very careful eye on that. That's the last graph in this presentation. So what I do is I do these every other day. So this particular one, Weather to Watch, will come out again on Wednesday. If you know me from the Ozarks, I'll do a specialty one for just Southwest Missouri and Northwest Arkansas. That's the heads up. And I'll publish that one tomorrow. So basically, for folks who are living around here and know me, you get an update every day. So be sure to be watching. Hopefully, it continues to sink south and doesn't cause too many problems for the Ozarks, or too many problems for most people who are going to be affected by this storm. Thanks for watching this edition of Weather to Watch. It comes out every other day, or as the weather necessitates. Please remember to share this with your friends, subscribe to the channel, or at the very least, like what you just watched. Thanks.